your long-delayed episode of The Real Housewives of Alaska.
No, we didn't give up on this one either. But we are looking to cut it down to twice monthly during Alaska's very short summers. So, yeah.
It is a thing. Summers in Alaska are very short.
The days are long, but the time is short.
Yes.
Yep.
So, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say that we are finally podcasting the documentary, the 2018 documentary, RBG.
Yes. So it was created by CNN Documentaries, and it is currently available to be streamed on Hulu.
Yes. Yes. And it's only an hour and a half, so.
And it's an hour and a half well spent.
Definitely.
I don't know that it's 3 hours well spent, Marnell. I have to give you a little bit of grief. So Marnell was like, okay, I'm going to have to push it until 8. And I already pushed us a half an hour beyond our starting point. And I was like, why? What's up? And she was like, I'm doing a rewatch. And I was like, oh my God, you need to get over the rewatch thing.
My brain does not work that way. I cannot make notes on my first go around. Like, it just... I would write down everything and it would be completely incoherent as far as the message. I think you posted or sent me a great meme one time that was Buddha says that holding on to anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. And my notes would say, Buddha says to give the other guy the poison.
Yes, you have told me that interpretation of that meme before.
Yes. So I absolutely love that because I completely identify with that. My brain does, I have to like plan what I'm going to take note of ahead of time. So here's my thing. There are some things I will rewatch. And in fairness, I watched this, I don't know, several months ago and really loved it. And then I watched it again when we said we were going to podcast it. I did not rewatch it again. Ah, okay. So that would count as my watch and rewatch too, because
months apart?
Yes. We podcasted something fairly recently that I suggested that I had watched months ago. And my rewatch was my note when I took notes.
And so, but there are definitely things I won't rewatch. And we talked about Fear the Walking Dead last night, and I was like, I'm over it. I don't even want to watch it the first time. I'm definitely not in a place where I would rewatch. I rewatched the episode where John Dory died because It was really good. But overall, I'm not rewatching Fear at this point. It's a struggle to watch it once.
In the number of years that I have been podcasting with you, I can honestly say I can probably count on one hand how many times I have only watched an episode once. And I think the majority are Preacher and Fear the Walking Dead episodes. Everything else I gotta watch twice.
Yeah,
and I think the Fear the Walking Dead episode was like there was a cable issue or something, and I literally watched it like right before we podcasted, so it was completely fresh. And yeah,
it's like pretty rare for me these days to rewatch stuff. My time is really limited, and we've talked about how my life is crazy by choice, but my time is really limited, and I just am not willing to invest that much.
Oh, I get it. That's one of the reasons why we are cutting down to twice a month for the summer, is because I got new furniture this weekend, and I'm hoping that it inspires me to do all the other crap around the house that I've been meaning to do, like kind of freshen up the bathrooms, like putting down new flooring, changing out the toilets and fixtures and blah, blah, blah. And I want my side yard to kind of become like a herb and vegetable garden. So I got plans this summer, so gotta cut back because Yours is time, mine is energy. I only have the energy for so much.
So mine
I
is
got all the time.
time and energy because, like, I mean, let's be honest, after I spend a weekend with my handsome guy, I'm pretty tired.
Yeah.
And I'm working a lot. I'm not working as much as I was, but I'm still working a lot. And I've got to really choose wisely how I spend my time and energy. And really,
Yeah.
frankly, having a life and developing myself as a human again is way more important to me.
So my boss actually gave her notice. They convinced her to stay for a month instead of 2 weeks. And she announced it today in our Monday meeting. So all of the administrative head of the sections found out, and it's funny because like she was starting and I could tell where she was going with it, and like I like closely watched everyone on Zoom and everyone's eyes just went super wide. And so my boss will be leaving in a month, which is right before fiscal year end, and in accounting that's a really big deal. So I may not get my garden this year. I may be chained to my desk. So we'll see.
Gross. All right. We have 54 minutes left. So let's talk about RBG.
All right. Well, I went first last night for ratings, so it's your turn.
Okay, my rating, I gave it a solid A because I really like this documentary, was 4.79 descent collars out of 5.
Oh, I almost chose that as my rating.
And I will just point out I have earrings that are styled after her descent collar.
Oh, I have her pin, and her descent collar is my favorite collar of hers.
I kind of like the Hawaiian one too, but I agree the descent collar is probably my favorite.
Yeah, and I love that the majority opinion one was given to her by a law clerk. And like, could you imagine being that law clerk that's like, whenever she gives a majority opinion, that's the collar that I gave her. That would be amazing.
Yeah.
So I actually rated it higher than you. I absolutely loved this. I loved RBG before this, and this just I had no idea just how amazing she was, before she was a Supreme Court justice. I mean, yeah, I had a little bit, but I gave it a solid 5 great dissenters.
Oh, really?
Yep.
So how many 5s have we had now? This for you, A Promising Young Woman for the both of us, and this and Hail Satan.
Yep. I can't remember if I
want to say there's something else that we had said was a 5, but I can't remember.
The one with Odessa.
Oh, Assassination Nation. That might have been a 5 also.
Yeah. So yeah, I absolutely love this. It is definitely 90 minutes well spent, and it was 180 minutes well spent. Thank you very much.
Okay. Unpopular opinion from my handsome boyfriend, and I actually have to agree, and he knows whereof he speaks for reasons that we won't go into on this podcast. He was like, I think she stayed on the court too long. He is super liberal, as am I, as are you. Yep. But, in some ways, by staying on the court as long as she did, she paved the way for Amy Coney Barrett.
Yes, unfortunately. That did not go in history's favor, I think. And I know that was a question that an interviewer asked of her.
In the movie, yeah. And she was like, I'll do it as long as I physically feel like I can.
Yeah, and I think I think, if she knew then, if she knew now, what she knew, I think she probably would have retired and given Obama the opportunity to replace her.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just.
I mean, it's second guessing, and it's stuff that can't be changed, but it wasn't an interesting conversation, and I can't disagree.
No, I cannot either. I think it's an unpopular opinion in that, yeah, like I agree that like it it's tough to say, to admit, but it's not unpopular in that it's true. She did stay too long.
It is. It's sadly true. And the thing is she is amazing. She was brilliant. She did incredible things. I don't want to diminish what she did by saying that, but at the same time, you know,
she survived cancer twice, and that woman could hold a plank longer than I could even attempt to hold a plank.
Right.
You know?
I mean, she was doing stuff with her personal trainer that I couldn't do right now.
Yeah. And so, she did everything that she possibly could to outlive his charm, and it just didn't work out that way, unfortunately.
So, okay, I have a bunch of numbers, so I'll try to hit the highlights. Okay. This movie premiered in 2018 at the Sundance Film Festival. It was actually released in a succession of releases to various theaters, and it eventually grossed $14 million worldwide, which is really respectable for a documentary.
Yeah.
It was nominated, oh my god, nominated, let's try that again, for Best Documentary and Best Original Song at the 91st Academy Awards. It did not win either of those. It has a 94% on Rotten Tomatoes and a 71 out of 100 on Metacritic, which means it's generally favorable. This is something that I thought was kind of interesting. So this was on the Wikipedia page for the documentary, and it has not been updated, so I don't know if it happened. I'm assuming it did. After RBG's death in September of 2020, this and the biopic On the Basis of Sex were supposed to be re-released into 1,000 theaters with the profits going to the ACLU.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Huh.
So, but the Wikipedia entry did not get updated, so I don't know if that actually happened or not.
Okay.
Our title, so it obviously has to do with the notorious RBG, which is actually a book that was written by Shauna Kniznik. I blew her name, sorry. And Irin. I-R-I-N.
I don't think they said their names. They flashed them on the screen on the documentary, so...
But they
right there with you.
They wrote the book, The Notorious RBG, which was obviously a play on the Notorious B.I.G.,
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that Ruth Bader Ginsburg, good Lord, it's going to be one of those nights. I thought that her quip about, we have a lot in common. For example, we were both born in Brooklyn. I thought that was funny.
Yeah.
So the book actually spawned a Tumblr account, t-shirts, mugs. So it was a big thing. And I mean, you still see those t-shirts.
Yeah. I have a pin. So, yeah.
Do you have anything else about the title?
No, I don't. I think it the only thing I think that I have is probably another controversial opinion. Recently there was when Amy Coney Barrett was
yes.
People were trying to label
ACB.
her ACB, and people are like, don't do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think that's a controversial opinion at all, but considering I'm firing my hairdresser for her COVID opinions, I tend to take things to the extreme, so
I'm really glad that I live in a little blue dot in a big red state.
So the hairdresser that I approached today, who is someone that I know in a different context, I was like, so what are your COVID policies? And she's very COVID aware, and she tries to be smart about it, which is kind of a hard thing to do when you're doing hair.
Mm-hmm.
And she was like, we do live in the wild, wild west, which is something I always say about living in the Mat-Su Valley of Alaska. So I thought that was really funny that she said that.
Yeah. There is a reason why there is a colloquial term up there of the Wasilla Hillbillies.
Yes.
Yep.
Ugh. All right. Onward with RBG, because, yeah, I could go on. So there are actually 2 directors for this documentary, no writer. The directors are Julie Cohen and Betsy West. Mm-hmm. So Julie Cohen has 9 director credits, 7 feature-length documentaries, and 2 TV short-length documentaries. This is the only one that I was familiar with. She does have one in completed, but it hasn't been released yet, and it was called Julia. So I looked it up. IMDb didn't really have any info, so I did some searches, and it actually is about Julia Childs.
Okay.
So that sounds interesting. And then when I looked at Betsy West, the other director, she only has 3 director credits, and they are all with Julie Cohen, including the movie about Julia, including this one, and then including one called My Name is Polly Murray. So I looked that up, and this sounds really interesting. This is actually a movie we might think about doing. So it's about a non-binary Black lawyer, activist, and poet who is cited as an influence for RBG and Thurgood Marshall.
Wow.
So then I was looking this person up because I was first of all I was like, okay, non-binary, born male, born female, in 1910. Lived until 1985. Actually had a apparently short and difficult marriage with a man and several relationships with women, and later in, it was too early for the whole discussion of pronouns, so I don't know if this person would have used they or she. I'm going to say her. Later in her life, was identified as transgender because it turns out that she dressed as a young man and passed as a young man several times in her earlier life.
Wow.
So super interesting, and interesting that she was cited as both influences for Thurgood Marshall and RBG, because RBG was much later than Thurgood Marshall.
Yeah. So the IMDb picture from the film, other than the cover photo of the film or the poster, is Polly Murray in what appears to be a priest collar with a cross. So I'm wondering if she did any sort of...
All right, now I'm going to have to look because I don't remember that.
I wonder if she was some sort of ordained minister or priest of a church. That is definitely one that I think we should put on the list.
And it was one that was just released today. So you're looking at the cover of the video, right?
If you go down, there's actually 2 pictures associated with the film.
Oh, okay. Now that looks like Episcopal garb.
Okay.
Interesting. Super interesting. Yeah,
so
okay.
smart.
We're probably going to have to look at that.
Yeah.
So that is the really basic stuff about the directors.
Yeah, there's not a whole lot out there about them.
Yeah, we may have to put I Am Polly Murray on our list, though.
Yeah.
Okay, so our Housewives hero, we both were in agreement about this. It's Marty Ginsburg.
Yes.
He was lovely.
Amazing.
I actually watched an interview with Armie Hammer, who played him in On the Basis of Sex.
Which is unfortunate.
Right, it is unfortunate. I mean, the only thing I know Armie Hammer from is the Lone Ranger movie, and that was fraught with problems. So many problems.
If you Google his name right now, Armie was... canceled because apparently he has a cannibalism fetish, which we do not kink shame, but he sent women unsolicited, very inappropriate messages about like cannibalizing them and raping them and doing things like this. So we don't kink shame, but don't do that.
That's kind of weird. I mean, we don't kink shame, but I definitely don't understand a cannibalism fetish.
It's a thing. I mean, there was that. Yeah.
Just when I think I'm not gonna like get shocked by the news, I get shocked by the news.
And just when you think Marnell's not gonna derail us this time.
You know, I mean, an insurrection in the Capitol, not shocking. Armie Hammer being a cannibal, shocking.
Yeah. He's not a cannibal. It's a fantasy. Like,
oh my god.
But
I'm not even gonna go there. There's such bad stuff in my head.
Creepy speculation about some disappearances in his area. Like, just if you're interested in it, Google it.
I'm totally going to DuckDuckGo right now.
So it is very unfortunate that he played Marty Ginsburg in the movie The Basis of Sex, because Marty is a feminist icon. Like, and that's hard to say about men sometimes, but he was definitely ahead of his time. He always kind of took a back seat to Ruth. But he was a lawyer, a tax lawyer, and a professor in his own right. They married shortly after he enlisted as an ROTC officer in the Army. And he was active duty stationed at Fort Still, Oklahoma for 2 years. And he has undergraduate training in chemistry. He graduated Harvard Law School about a year ahead of Ruth. And he also dealt with his own bout of cancer, which they kind of go into in the movie a little bit. But it was just always just so amazing. I mean, from the very, very beginning of Ruth's career, just supporting her when she was in law school. But one of the things that I absolutely love about him was he actually was the person who brought to her attention the legal fight that sort of put her on her path for this gender equality fight that, eventually did lead to her being elected to the Supreme Court. The Weinberg versus Weisenfeld in 1975. He brought that case, to her attention. I think there was that letter to the editor that kind of started all of that. So they were married for 56 years. And the thing that he says, I think the most important thing that I have done is to enable Ruth to do what she has done. The letter that Justice Ginsburg read at the end of the movie, I don't know how she did it without crying. I mean, that woman is just made of steel. He always described his wife as a top student, and he was the top golfer, because he was on the golf team at Cornell when they met. For the sacrifices that he made for Ruth's career, he said that he has loved his wife since the beginning of time, and she has been.
That's one of the reasons I wanted to do this.
I know.
With Marty Ginsburg, because just the love story is so great.
Yes, she has been supportive of me. It's not a sacrifice; it's family. So like that like kind of makes me well up.
What? Cold and dead inside Marnell,
right?
Welling up?
Right. So Marty went so far as to, when Justice Ginsburg was put up for the Supreme Court nomination, he simplified the couple's finances by selling all of the stock that they had in companies or industries, so that she wouldn't have to recuse herself from any of the cases that came before her as a Supreme Court judge. So, I mean, he was always thinking of her and her career. And I find him amazing. And it's so funny because they were such polar opposites. She was described as, sober and, quiet. And he was very gregarious and outgoing and funny and fun-loving. And they just fit together like puzzle pieces. I mean, talk about, a balance of things.
I have to say, one of the things that I love, and his kids mentioned it, and they actually quoted him where he was basically like, look, I don't give her legal advice, and she doesn't ask me for cooking advice.
I did read a funny thing that said it was very early on in their marriage he discovered that she was not a good cook, and she had no interest in bettering herself in that way. So for his own survival, he became a good cook. So yeah,
I am kind of a problematic cook myself, so I can respect that.
Yeah. I'm a good cook, but the other half does the cooking because he actually enjoys it. He's good at it and enjoys it. For me, it's a chore. So, I do, but only when I have to, or only when I want to, only when it's something that I am, want to eat, that, because the other half doesn't like peppers. And so, if I'll make fajitas and force him to eat it.
That's fun. Does he pick out the peppers?
He's gotten a lot better, and it's one of those things where he grew up in a military family on a very strict budget, and they had stuffed bell peppers a lot.
So he developed a hatred of them. Yeah.
Yep. So,
I have to say, speaking of food, and now I'm derailing us, my ferritin has gone from 7, which is in the toilet, to 35, which is the lower end of normal, but it's normal. I hate to say it because I started taking my iron and started eating meat again.
Oh, yeah.
So here we are.
Yeah.
Okay, back to Marty Ginsburg, though. Sorry, I did totally derail us. So you touched on the letter that she talked about.
Mm-hmm.
That was heartbreaking. Do you think that he actually passed because of his cancer, or do you think that he decided to... It sounded like he was going to overdose.
So the official cause of death is
the official cause of death and the actual cause of death are very often two different things.
Right. So, he died in June 27th of 2010. From it just says cancer. It doesn't say what type of cancer.
So he had testicular cancer when he was a young man. Yep. And was actually treated with 2 surgeries and with radiation, and I think that was in the 50s.
54, yes.
So I'm assuming they had their children before he had his cancer diagnosis and his treatment. So it's a miracle that those children are alive, that they are here.
She was raising a 2-year-old while she was nursing him. So I think they may have had one before and one after.
I'm speculating here, but the treatment for testicular cancer is good now. It very often still involves removal of the affected testicle, although obviously you can have a pregnancy with one testicle. I'm thinking the treatment of testicular cancer, especially because radiation was not targeted the way it can be now, I'm thinking that it was barbaric at that point in time.
Okay, so I said 54 and it's actually 56. So Jane Ginsburg was born in 55 and James Ginsburg was born in 65.
Wow, shocking.
Yes,
That's
so
shocking.
James was probably wow, that happened.
Right.
Because a lot of people generally do not have children 10 years apart. Unless,
yeah, it's generally speaking not planned. If there's that big a distance between pregnancies.
James Ginsburg is a miracle baby.
That is super interesting.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Okay, well, I stand corrected. I just assumed that both of the kids would have been conceived before his testicular cancer. Anyway, I am guessing, and I don't know that this is accurate, that he probably had like a recurrence or a metastatic process, but it's so far out from his original cancer diagnosis, it could have been a completely separate cancer.
Well, and Ruth went through 2 different cancers too. So, God, did they live near high power lines or what?
They are both gastrointestinal cancers, but I don't honestly know, and I didn't look because I didn't even think about it. I don't honestly know if there's any kind of relationship between pancreatic cancer and colon cancer, other than the fact that they're GI tract cancers.
Yeah. So he was, since he was an ROTC officer, U.S. Army Reserve, he was buried in Arlington National Cemetery. And just this past year, when Justice Ginsburg died, she was buried next to him. So they were both in Arlington.
Which I think is super cool.
Yes. Yes.
I did want to say a couple of other things about Marty Ginsburg. So, and you may have already said this, and I'm sorry, I was like kind of not entirely paying attention because I was looking up Armie Hammer. So he was a visiting professor at Stanford, Harvard, the University of Chicago Law School, and NYU, and he was a tenured professor at Columbia and Georgetown. So neither one of them was intellectual slouches. And I wouldn't assume that she would be with anyone who did not equal her brilliance. Mm-hmm. But I thought that was really, really great that he was well respected in his field of law and also a professor in his field of law because she was a professor at various different spots as well.
So, talk about a man who is very secure in his own right that holds his wife up, above himself.
Yeah, and to be a man from that era.
Yeah. And I just loved that she said that when she went to Cornell, the ratio was 4 men to every 1 woman. So her first semester, she didn't repeat a date until she went out with Marty. And he was the only man who appreciated her for her brain. So, you couldn't ask for a better guy.
Look, I am all about men who appreciate women for their brains.
Yep.
I am. Because I will say, and this is not putting too fine a point on it, the lovely man that I'm involved with was like, the fact that you're a highly educated professional is very attractive. I love being appreciated by a man for my brain and my education. It's very nice. So good on you, Marty Ginsburg. Yes. I totally love you because of your dedication to your wife and because of your respect, especially in the era in which you guys came up, for her brilliance.
Yeah. And, if he were alive, he would tell you that he was the lucky one. So.
Yes, he would.
Yeah. So, Marty Ginsburg, feminist icon, and our Housewives Hero of the Week.
Yay! All right, I don't have much in the weekly, but this is kind of funny. So, and I posted this to Real Housewives Facebook page already. It's kind of a rare thing when Justice Ginsburg and an attorney who decides to join the Satanic Temple become a news item in the same thing. So this woman's name is Jamie Smith, and she kind of describes herself as an average mom and an attorney. Right after RBG died, wrote an article for HuffPo about becoming a member of the Satanic Temple. And she was basically like, I looked at the 7 tenets, and I looked at the way that they are advancing women's rights, especially protecting women's reproductive rights, and I decided that the Satanists are my people.
And that's the big takeaway from Hail Satan was that even though they have religious they're held up as a religious organization, they definitely are a legal political organization. I think probably first and foremost.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, they're far more of a political organization than they are a religious organization.
Yeah. I think there's probably people who are more invested into the religion that are members, but the core of the organization is definitely a legal force, hopefully to be reckoned with more so in the future.
It's going to be interesting. I mean, I think that as long as we do Real Housewives, we're going to keep an eye on them. And probably long after, quite honestly, because I'm a paid member.
I was just going to say, I recently got my membership, or it's on its way to me, the certificate and the card.
Good girl.
And I ordered a hoodie also.
They're like, what is it, these Satanists in Alaska?
All of a sudden, we're getting a ton of orders to Alaska.
I have to totally laugh, and this is disclosing way too much again, but when I look at my fella's ex as compared to me, I'm like, I'm loud, I'm blonde, I'm tattooed, I'm a Satanist. What? I'm a little scary.
Not to me, you're not.
Thank God, you're my ride or die, man. You are my ride or die. All right, I told you I was going to talk about this. This is actually an article about COVID in Alaska that was in the New York Times yesterday. New York Times. We made the New York Times. I'm so proud. Not.
Right.
So, COVID is surging in interior Alaska, specifically in Fairbanks, which is our third largest city? Second largest city.
Second largest.
It goes Anchorage, Fairbanks, then Juneau.
Yep.
In the last 2 weeks, they have had a 253% increase in cases.
That's just, yeah.
It's raging. COVID is raging in Fairbanks. The docs that they interviewed for the article were basically like, our people are exhausted, morale is low, this is horrible. They did point to the very low vaccination rates in Alaska as issues. So 36% of all Alaskans are vaccinated. That sucks. 29% of people from Fairbanks are vaccinated.
So we actually were the number one vaccinations in the nation up until about a month ago. I mean, there were articles being written about how well we are doing rolling out the vaccinations. And then it almost came to like a dead stop. We went from literally not being able to get an appointment at the vaccination clinics because like they were all taken up to, hey, come on by anytime you need, what you want, because we've got plenty of open spaces at our vaccination clinics. Just drop by.
I blame some of that on Johnson & Johnson because people freaked the fuck out.
Yes.
The morning after news broke, our phones were ringing off the hook.
Yeah.
Ringing off the hook. I had Johnson & Johnson. Now my life is in danger. I'm not getting vaccinated. I'm canceling my vaccination appointments because my life is in danger. I blame Johnson & Johnson. I really do. But I also blame Alaska's craziness because you are in a blue dot in a red state. You said that yourself. Yes. We are a state full of anti-maskers, vaccine deniers, COVID deniers. I mean, we are just... Alaska is crazy. Pro tip to anybody outside of the state of Alaska, if you're thinking about coming here for a tourism thing, don't come until the pandemic is dealt with.
Well, do you know we haven't even started planning for the cruise ships to come back, and that is a huge portion.
And we're into May already.
Income.
And we're into May already, which is usually when we start seeing cruise ships in Alaska.
Right. So we didn't get any last year, and we are not going to get any this year because Canada is still not letting the cruise ships dock there. And the only cruise ships that can come to Alaska are ones that have just come from like a North American port. And since they're all the ships come out of foreign ports because taxes, we're not going to get any ships again this year. So it's a huge portion of our state tax income. We get a lot of sales tax and tourism dollars, and that's not happening. So fiscally, it'll be interesting going forward.
I mean, I'm devastated for our state, but when I hear things like people aren't getting vaccinated and there's a 253% increase in cases in Fairbanks in 2 weeks, I'm like, maybe we don't need people coming from outside.
Yeah. So, I mean, this just tells you sort of a lot you need to know. Did you see the news out of Homer today?
I did not.
The FBI raided a woman's home because her and her boyfriend were at the insurrection on the 6th, and they are thought to be in possession of Pelosi's laptop.
Oh my God! Is that in the news? Because I need to share that with someone.
That is in the news right now.
Oh my God.
Yep. We have family in Homer, too. So.
We do, and I hope it's none of our family, because it could be.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't. So, yeah, that happened. One of our state senators can't go on the only airline that flies to the Capitol because she refuses to wear a mask. So instead, she has to drive and take a 20-hour commuter ferry to get here. So her commute is now 20 hours long.
Okay, so the stuff that I'm seeing is Alaska couple says FBI raided their home and it was wrong.
Yeah, that's what they say. The FBI did raid their home, so I'm not saying that the law always gets things right, but yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so
this is definitely one of those I don't know what website to look at because, yeah.
Yeah. I think ADN had the...
did they? Okay.
Article. Yeah. So it's been an interesting week in Alaska, legally speaking, COVID speaking.
Good Lord. And I now it's such a blur. I can't remember if I said anything on the I think I did. I'm firing my hairdresser because she's a COVID jerk.
Mm-hmm.
Which just breaks my heart because she's a great hairdresser and in many ways she's a good human being, but she just pushed it over the edge today.
Yeah. Yeah. I have not been on Facebook. I don't know if that will come up in my feed, your guys' sort of confrontation. But,
I don't think so because I commented on her page and I don't know if it's something that you'll see. I don't know if her page is public, but I'm still pretty pissed off.
Look, the vaccination has not been correlated with anybody's death. So COVID's killed over 500,000 people in the U.S. alone, let alone the havoc it is wreaking around the world at this very moment. So I know a ton of people who have been vaccinated and they're all fine. Yeah, we had our quote unquote reactions to it, but it's a normal reaction that you get when a vaccination is stimulating your immune system. You don't get the flu from the flu shot, but you do feel a little crappy for a while. And that happens. That's your immune system doing its thing. And now I have less of a chance of getting COVID or passing COVID on. And if I do have a breakthrough case, which is a thing, or if I get one of the strains that's not completely one of the new strains, I have less of a chance of having a bad case of COVID. Get your vaccinations, people.
Well, according to my medical director, that's not a thing. Yes, I did just say that out loud.
An article that was published that day about the breakthrough cases in Alaska surging.
Right. And I had read an article that same week about breakthrough cases in the Washington Post. So it is a thing.
It is. And it's a thing in Alaska.
Yeah.
Yeah. So get your vaccinations.
Yeah. All right. And I told you that I wasn't going to let us talk forever. And here we are. We've talked forever on the news. But this is the Real Housewives working in service to you. So.
Yeah. Yep.
So housekeeping is very brief. As we said, for the summer, at least, we're going to decrease the frequency of Real Housewives to every 2 weeks. And part of it is my own selfishness, and part of it is summer in Alaska, because really, when you have so much snow and so much darkness, you actually do want to be able to go for a hike.
Yeah.
You want to go for a bike ride. You want to do stuff that entails being outside. And so it's kind of hard to podcast and do that.
You're further north than me, but right around early April is when we start, it really starts to become apparent that spring is coming no matter what the weather is like, because, we're so used to the sun setting at 4 o'clock. It's pitch black at 4 o'clock. So you go to work in the darkness and you come home in the darkness. And, now it is 9 p.m. and it is still light outside here. So.
Yeah, I mean, it's light early, it's light late, it's gorgeous. Yep. We actually had a week of about a week of very lovely temperatures and a lot of flying. It's very nice, but I'm just yearning to actually spend some time doing some stuff outside.
Yeah. Yeah.
And to not be not going on a motorcycle ride. and I want to not be chained to my computer all summer.
Right.
So we love you. Please continue to listen to Real Housewives. Just know that for a while it's going to be every 2 weeks.
Yeah, we'll strive to get the 2 out a month that we are now promising, but we are definitely cutting back for the summer.
Yep. Okay, speaking of the summer, I guess I'm going first, aren't I?
You are.
Okay, so
good segue.
My summer was and I need to turn to my notes, the Wiesenfeld case.
Weinberg versus Wiesenfeld, that was mine too.
Oh, that's so funny. Okay, so this Wiesenfeld's wife died of an embolism when she was giving birth to their son. Mm-hmm. And he basically got embroiled in trying to get Social Security benefits. And at that point in time, it was back in the early 70s, they were referred to as mother's benefits. And he was basically told, look, you're a dude. You don't get mother's benefits. Suck it up. And his response was, you know what? I'm going to be raising my son alone, and I need to dedicate as much of my time to raising my son as I can. So if that means I get mother's benefits and I'm able to not work and be with my son, that's a real thing. And so RBG took the case on and won. And the reason I made it my summer is her point that sex discrimination hurts everyone.
Yes.
Even that. Yes.
Discrimination. Yep.
Even in the early 70s, she was able to say, this is not just about the women's movement. This is not just about feminism. This is about equality.
Yes.
And this is about recognizing that in these kinds of circumstances, men deserve as many rights as women do.
Yes. So I love that it all kind of started with Wiesenfeld wrote a letter to the editor, and I love what he said, that he was basically being discriminated against because he was a man. And I wonder if Gloria Steinem knows about this. And, if she didn't at the time, she definitely learned about it. And I think that maybe he was trying to put that in there, like, you know, everyone's all about women's rights. What about my rights? And then he got pulled into this larger, world of gender-based discrimination. And I think, you know, he became very woke after that, you know, that it was one of those things where men don't realize that the gender-based discrimination is not just a women's problem. It's a human problem. And it is about equality and not special rights. And one of the things that I have definitely seen, I used to work for OCS, and I do have a couple of men in my life who are single fathers. And I am here to tell you that, unfortunately, the courts favor the mother in almost every case. It's getting better. But I have actually seen mothers who, have addiction issues and some mental health issues and things like that get custody over a stable, working, sober father. And that's gender discrimination, and men are affected by it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, am I going to say that women are much more affected? Yeah, I'm probably going to say that.
Yes.
But absolutely. And the thing that was so important to me was that RBG recognized early on it is a significant factor for both people. Both sexes are hurt when both sexes are discriminated against.
I love that she made that part of the foundation of all of her arguments against gender discrimination. You know, the first case she argued was Frontero versus Richardson, which was the woman in the Air Force who was discriminated
who wanted her
against
husband to have
housing
benefits.
Allowance. Yes.
Yeah.
Or, no, housing allowance.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I was thinking it was benefits.
And so that was the first, but it wasn't like she wasn't just taking on women's cases to argue about women's rights. She understood that she was in front of 9 men trying to make them understand gender equality. Mm-hmm. And so she had to make it about them. She understood that she had to make the foundation resonate with them. Yeah. Amazing.
Well, do you think our winters, our bads will be the same thing?
Considering I had a really hard time finding a bad, so my bad is very minor, probably not.
Okay, so I'm going to go first.
Okay.
My bad was about the comments that she made about Donald Trump when he was a candidate.
Oh, yeah.
And it is hard for me to pick on RBG, but I do think that the comments that were made saying this is not appropriate were actually right, because it really did set her up to be accused of bias anytime she ruled in something that was brought before the court that was brought by the Trump administration. Right. And she was basically there for the entire Trump administration. Yeah. I mean, I think that she handled it well and she walked it back well, but she probably should have been more thoughtful and should have never made the comments in the first place. And I have to give you a bit of a caveat by saying I will never be that cautious person. Mm-hmm. I will never have the degree of caution that I am saying she should have had.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
I'm the person whose therapist is saying, you're oversharing. You don't need to tell people that much.
And I was thinking that she had to have been completely shook to her core to let be that her incautious. Yes. Yeah, to kind of let that one slip out, because she was, I mean, that is uncharacteristic of her anyway, but she was already so practiced in not, showing any bias that, I mean, I can't imagine what she was thinking when she said that, you know, because whatever she was thinking had to be, you know, 100 times worse. I loved what
Good
Orrin
point.
Hatch.
Good
I
point.
love what former U.S. Senator, Republican, Utah, Orrin Hatch
Yeah,
had to
let's
say
be
about
honest, because he is not a particularly liberal person.
No,
Yeah.
so he said that, you know, we're human, we make mistakes. That just proves that she is human, and she apologized for it. That shooketh me. So, yeah, I was very surprised about that. And yes, it's very hard to criticize her, but that was definitely a bad slip.
So, what was your winter? Since it was not my winter.
My winter was the very, very beginning of the documentary, and all of the things that the right-wing pundits and politicians were saying about
I wrote all that down too. Wicked,
yes.
Anti-American, vile.
Witch, evildoer, monster. They called her a monster. She was like 98 pounds.
Right.
Like,
now, so witch, quiet. I might grant you because she was amazing, but witch in the best way. You know.
Yeah, definitely. So I just, you know, watching some of the things that we have, and of course framing Britney Spears is like totally comes to mind in the things that we have said about people, let alone women, like the things that we have said, like, and I'm guilty of it too. You know, I have called certain politicians monsters, but I just don't see it on her part. You know, I'm like, how do you call her an evildoer and vile and vicious and a monster?
And I'm going to talk about this, spoiler alert, but her friendship with Antonin Scalia, I don't think Antonin Scalia would have been very thrilled by his colleagues, his Republican colleagues, calling her an evildoer, a witch, a monster, vile. No.
Yeah. Yeah, that was, I love that he called them the odd couple. But yeah, that's a really good point. I didn't even think about that. Huh.
It's a thing.
Yeah, it is definitely a thing. Yeah, so that was my winter. It was so mild. I had a really hard time finding anything bad to say about the documentary because I gave it a 5 out of 5. Yeah. So, what was your road construction, and was it good or bad?
Well, so this leads to my road construction, and it was good, and it truly is the friendship between Antonin Scalia and Ruth Bader Ginsburg. And I will tell you that I think Antonin Scalia was definitely not my human. And I'm trying to avoid calling him a monster or worse things, but I think that there were some things that he believed and posited that were pretty horrible. That said, the fact that these two extremely opposite people were able to have a loving friendship. I mean, there was actually a scene that was caught after Marty Ginsburg died where Antonin Scalia was caught weeping.
Oh.
You know, so the fact that they had so much love for each other, despite the fact that they were so different, is kind of hopeful. And I feel like we've lost that.
So I kind of wonder if I have to imagine that it still goes on, but that it is probably a lot more strained than it may have used to have been.
Well, you know, so
the Supreme Court is a family, and they have dinners together with like their spouses and like the 9 of them.
And I know that they really try to promote collegiality, but I'm guessing with the introduction of the Bush appointees and now the Trump appointees that you are not seeing that kind of friendship.
Well, and there's also the controversy surrounding the possibility of expanding the Supreme Court.
Right, which you haven't heard much more about that since RBG's death. But
right. I was just hearing a few things the other day about it. So there's some scuttlebutt around, but I mean, it's one of those things where I think just about every new incoming president, like, there's scuttlebutt about, like, you know, whether or not they're going to pack the courts. And so, yeah, barring any, you know, tragedies or disasters or ill health, I don't see a vacancy coming open on the Supreme Court anytime soon.
I agree.
Yeah.
So I did pull up a couple of articles about the friendship between Scalia and RBG because I wanted to talk a little bit more about it than just say, oh, I thought it was really cool. So they actually received a civility award in 2015 from Allegheny College, which honors the respectful exchange of ideas between lawmakers. And this is from the New York Post, which I don't usually read because it's not in my purview. And then there was just a summary of some comments by Antonin Scalia's son after Ruth Bader Ginsburg died. And I thought these were really neat. So he actually worked, Antonin Scalia actually worked with RBG on the DC Circuit Court of Appeals. This is a roast he delivered for her 10th anniversary on the Circuit Court of Appeals. They'd been colleagues on that court until he went to the Supreme Court. She had not joined him there yet, and he missed her. That's all I have to say by the way of roasting, but I will conclude with a few earnest comments. I have missed Ruth very much since leaving the Court of Appeals. She was the best of colleagues as she is the best of friends. I wish her 100 years.
Wow.
So this is another thing, and I thought this was really beautiful. So this is a story that Judge Jeffrey Sutton shares about an encounter late in my dad's life when he bought his friend Ruth 24 roses for her birthday. During one of my last visits with Justice Scalia, I saw striking evidence of the Scalia-Ginsburg relationship. As I got up to leave his chambers, he pointed to 24 roses on his table and noted that he needed to take them down to Ruth for her birthday. Wow, I said. I doubt I have given a total of 24 roses to my wife in almost 30 years of marriage. You ought to try it sometime, he retorted. Unwilling to give him the last word, I pushed back. So, what good have all of those roses done for you? Name one 5-4 case of any significance where you got Justice Ginsburg's vote. Some things, he answered, are more important than votes. I let him have the last word.
Oh.
So I just thought those were super sweet. There was also a quote in the same article where she spoke about Antonin Scalia, and she said, from our years together at the DC Circuit, we were best buddies, she said. He was a jurist of captivating brilliance and wit, with a rare talent to make even the most sober judge laugh. The press referred to his energetic fervor, astringent intellect, peppery prose, acumen, and affability, all apt descriptions.
Wow.
So, you know, as much as Antonin Scalia is not my jam, the fact that they were able to have a loving friendship, it was clearly a loving friendship.
Yes, it was, I mean, nothing short of genuine.
Yes. And the fact that they were able to do that in this day and age, I really do think our hyper-partisanship started with Reagan. It got incredibly worse with Bush, the second Bush. And then, of course, Trump just ruined everything. Mm-hmm. I think the fact that these two were able to have that loving relationship in spite of all of this is pretty miraculous.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what go ahead.
I just wondered if, was it really just that they bonded over their love of opera, or was it something, because, they were polar opposites. You couldn't get more opposite than those two. And she described him as her souvenir shopping buddy.
So one of the articles that I read was not just opera, it was kind of culture and fine wine. Okay. So I think it was more, and I think truly they did respect each other's intellects, and even though they didn't agree with one another's interpretation of the law, they respected that they both were deep thinkers.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, and Antonin Scalia said about her, what's not to like, except all of her legal opinions.
Right. I love when the reporters were questioning them both about the intent of the Constitution, and I forget what Scalia had to say about it. But
his thing is he was an originalist. You have to go
yes.
with exactly what they meant at the time that it was written and the language at the time that it was written. And it's like, really? Yeah. Are you kidding me? It's 2021. And granted, he died in 2015 or 2016, but still.
She was definitely the spirit of the Constitution. Her interpretation that it was striving for a more perfect union. So, yeah, their relationship was very interesting, and I just, like her friend said, I don't know if she's very good at compartmentalizing herself, and I am very good at compartmentalization, but I don't know if I could go to that extent. I have many, many friends who have differing opinions, but I am not that close to them.
Dude, so. I am definitely not. I'm filing my hairdresser of several or firing my hairdresser of several years. I am definitely not good at compartmentalization. Of course, we are talking about a global pandemic, but
yeah, COVID puts an asterisk against next to everything.
It does. It absolutely does.
So my road construction was also good, of course. I've heard this before. It was in the documentary. I absolutely love that. She doesn't push for, but she advocated for having 9 women on the Supreme Court. And when people were appalled by that, she said, why not? It's been 9 men for, the longest of time.
Exactly.
Yeah. And what's funny is when she was arguing one of the cases, and it might have been the Weinberg versus Weisenfeld, or it might have been one that came after that. But, it was the one that allowed women to get out of jury duty, to opt out of jury duty. One of the justices asked her, well, if you're arguing that there is no difference between men and women, then what's the difference of having women on a jury as opposed to just all men? And I don't remember her response, because I remember I was thinking, okay, would he want to be judged by a panel of 12 women? No, he wouldn't, right?
Right.
So, yeah, it should definitely be a representation of, a jury of your peers, an accurate representation of the population. And so I loved that she was always flipping the script like that it was like, why not? It's been men all, this entire time. So I was listening to something today, it might have been the Young Turks, where someone said, whenever you're looking at the unfairness of the law, always look up, never down, because this was, I think they were talking about taxes, and it was like, the people below you don't make the rules. It's the people that are above you that make the rules. So if you don't like the rules, don't look at poor people who are having to live by the tax code. Look at the rich people that are in charge of everything. So, yeah, I absolutely love how she was always flipping the script, because I do that myself. I try to put myself in that position and say, would I say that if I were saying it about a man? So I find myself, trying to reverse my internalized misogyny, and, I'm always strive for equality and not superiority. So she was amazing.
Yeah, I'm trying to think if I can say that. I try to strive for my equality and not superiority. I think that's true, but I'm not sure. I'm going to have to like use that as a rubric going forward. No, really, honestly, fairly.
Yeah. Yeah, and I told you I was going to derail us with TikToks.
Don't you dare! I said no!
The other day, something came up in my For You page, and of course it's based on my algorithm, and it was the whole thing about pockets, women's pockets. And this guy had not accidentally, he's like, I would have bought them anyway. They look great. He was buying a pair of jeans at a thrift shop, and he didn't realize until he got them home that they were women's jeans.
Because they didn't have any pockets?
Oh, he was demonstrating just how shallow the pockets were. He's like, even when they give you pockets, they're horrible. And so he tried to put like his phone in a pocket, and it went a third of the way in. He's like, even my AirPods stick out of this pocket. And then so he put on a pair of men's pants, and he's like, I have an entire bottle of wine in my pocket, And so, of course, the video went viral. And so now he's like, I can't believe some of the things that the women were talking about in the comments about, things that he's like, I had never heard. And of course, this is like a Gen Z. I had never heard of the pink tax before. What the hell? He's like, you pay more for the same stuff. He's like, deodorant, face wash, hair color. And so he did a test. He bought women's shave gel and a woman's razor because, of course, it was pink. And he had men's shave gel and a man's razor. And he's like, okay, I've never shaved my legs before in my entire life, but here we go. And he's like, this is ridiculous. The women's razor was 11% more than the men's razor, and it's an awful razor. And so I think it's funny. And I follow a bunch of guys on TikTok who are like this, who are struggling to understand, the trials and tribulations of being a woman. There's one guy who, he's like a 17-year-old kid, and he started off not understanding, about women's periods, and now he advocates for, he's raised a ton of money to purchase sanitary products, menstrual products for homeless shelters. And it's just this explosion of these feminist men is just amazing, and I love it. God, there's just so many, and it's so fun to watch. And I could not imagine growing up in Ruth Bader Ginsburg's shoes, in a time where when she went to Harvard, it was only 2% women. That's crazy.
Whereas when her granddaughter went to Harvard, it was 50% women.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, you did derail us with TikTok.
I did derail us with TikTok, but they were relevant.
Okay, I am going to say, now that we're into bycatch, because we're totally in bycatch.
Oh, yeah.
I loved what her mother said to her about be a lady, but be independent. Because yes. I felt like her mother started to shape and form her early on. And for that to be something, again, in the era in which she was born and raised, that was huge.
Right. And she was first generation American on her father's side and only second generation American on her mother's side. So, yeah. Her parents at the time, I think she said when they lived in Texas, her father, being Jewish, wasn't even allowed to go to school. And so you have to think that she probably grew up in a struggling immigrant family. And so I think that's part of where that came from her mother is, you know, always strive to be independent and, you know, get a good education and rely on yourself. I hope you meet Prince Charming, but, you know, at least you can rely on yourself.
You know, I read a beautiful thing. Now I'm going to derail us on. So I'm a member of a group called MOFA, which is Mildly Offensive Fiber Artists. And this person had written this beautiful thing and actually cross-stitched it and shared the cross-stitch. And it was basically like, you know, we don't have to combine our households, but let's spend time together and leave a toothbrush here. We don't have to walk the same path, but let's walk together every now and then. You don't have to have my opinions because I expect you to challenge me and have conversation and have disagreements, and I'm going to do the same with you. And I thought, oh, that's a love relationship.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I would love to have known more about her parents because that seems like an interesting story in itself. She had a sister, but her sister sounds like her sister died at a very early age. So Ruth was raised as an only child. And, you know, she was, of course, the first in her American family to go to college. So, yeah, just an amazing story. And I love that she referred a lot to her mother. When I was talking earlier about the justice in one of the, I think it was the same case, and it was the same justice who made a joke about something during court, and an interviewer asked her, how did you feel when they were doing that? You know, basically belittling your argument and with trivial things. And she said, never in anger. That would have been self-defeating. And that was something her mother told her. Never in anger. So, yeah. Be a lady, but be independent.
Yep. I just want to point out, because I'm going to cut us short here in a few minutes because I don't want to be up super late. I have to get up extremely early. So I'm being selfish. Some of the laws that she worked on in the 1970s, women's credit, pregnancy, and I'm assuming, I just wrote down pregnancy. I'm assuming like right to carry a pregnancy or not carry a pregnancy.
Employers could fire.
Oh, that's right. That's right. You're right.
Yep.
You're totally right. So employers not being able to fire women who are pregnant. That was what she worked on making happen. Prosecuting spousal rape.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Those were all big revolutionary things.
Yeah. In her argument in Frontero versus Richardson, I wrote down some of the things that she put in, that how women were described in other legal cases. Women were inferior, they were subordinate, they were a waste of human resources, dependent, and too weak to vote. And this was after a time when women went into the workforce when the men went off to war, and the women kept things running in our country.
Not only that, but when women went to war.
Yes.
They may not have gone as soldiers, but they went as nurses, they went as clerks, and they kept the war effort running in the front lines.
Yes, so this was long after that had started, and they were still being described as a waste of human resources. I was speechless at that. Yeah. I love that she when she was talking about the trivial things that the justices would bring up when she was arguing a case in front of them and the jokes that they would make. And she said never in anger. She thought of herself as a kindergarten teacher. Basically, it was like teaching someone the fundamentals of something. And so I get it. I think it was kind of funny that she sort of belittled them in the end. Again, turning the tables, but I can see how she felt that way, because you were having to teach people basic human rights because they only looked at things from their place of privilege.
Do you remember the part in the movie where the dean's dinner happened at Harvard, and basically the dean sat down the women in the class and were like, I want to know what you're doing taking a seat that could have been taken by a man.
Yes. And they just had to take it. Mm-hmm. And, someone said that that I think it was either in Cornell or it was in Harvard. I think it was in Harvard. It could have been in Columbia. But that they used the Socratic method of the teacher would ask a question and choose who to call on. Like, you didn't raise your hand or shout out the answer or anything. And they would never call on the women. And they said that they thought it was because the women would wither, if they had to answer the question or speak up or anything like that. And I'm like, I just don't think you wanted to hear the answer from a woman. I think that you just didn't want to be outshined by a woman, So there was probably a little bit of, oh, the poor dear, I wouldn't want to embarrass her. But there was also probably like, considering what she said in her last paper, she could probably argue me into the ground. She won 5 out of the 6 cases that she argued in front of the Supreme Court. A woman won 5 out of the 6 cases that she argued in front of the Supreme Court. She was amazing.
So I wanted to say something that one of the women who wrote the book, The Notorious RBG, said. Because she was talking about, like, her resurgence as... Well, not even her resurgence, her climb to fame and her becoming a hero for so many women. And she said, who is more disdained or told to go away than an older woman?
Yes, and now people were seeking her out for her opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah. I thought that was really powerful, too, because, I'm 41 now, and, I've got a gray streak in my hair, and, this is when everybody says that older women start getting overlooked. We become invisible, and I'm like, you know what? Maybe they used to, but not anymore.
Yeah, no, I'm going to say the same thing. I'm 50 and I am not invisible.
Nope.
I am feisty as hell and I am not invisible.
Yeah. I love that one of the cases that she argued, Ledbetter versus Goodyear. Or no, she didn't argue it. She was the dissenting.
She was on the court. Yeah.
Right. It was a 5-4 decision, and they ruled against Lily Ledbetter because they said that she brought her suit too late, which is BS because, until then people were encouraged not to discuss salary. So how would you have known? And so the first bill that Obama signed was the Lily Ledbetter Act.
I'm being quiet because I don't have anything to add.
So the last couple of things that I wanted to add was when her children were talking about their memories of their mother's late nights of working and taking care of the family and everything, that she was sitting at the kitchen table with coffee and a can of prunes. And I'm like, That sounds like a terrible combo.
It does. It sounds like a horrible idea.
Yeah, because I'm just
she must have been very regular.
And she was one of those people, they say that you cannot replenish your sleep bank. Like, you can't, go 110 miles an hour 5 days a week and then just sleep on the weekends. But that's exactly what she did. She, worked very, very hard and had to be physically brought home sometimes. And she only ate one meal a day. She had 2 bouts of cancer and never missed a day on the bench. I mean, this woman was made of iron.
So, there was something else. Oh, I wanted to talk about her VMI case.
Yeah.
I don't want to go super deeply into it, but it was a really meaningful case for a lot of women.
Yeah.
And, it was so interesting because Ted Olson, who lost his wife in the September 11th attacks, actually was the attorney who brought it before the Supreme Court. And he was basically like, yeah, it really shouldn't be okay to say that VMI can't continue to be single-sex education because men and women have benefited from single-sex education. And Ruth Bader Ginsburg was like, no, equal opportunity to aspire, achieve, and participate in and contribute to society happens in mixed-sex education.
Yeah. I think there used to be... you could have made the case a while ago for keeping boys and girls separate in classrooms. But that was in a time when women weren't encouraged to raise their hands or be smart, or, we didn't have people encouraging women to go into STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mechanics. And so I think you may have been able to make a case a long time ago, like 20, 30 years ago, about, keeping men and women's education separate. But now, no, I don't think so. I think we're past that as a society.
I hope so. I think so. I think there are very few places that are still sex segregated, but very few.
Yeah. Yeah. I can't remember who said it, but I love that they said that she, when she first sat on the court and they went in to talk about the ruling, to discuss the ruling, that she came in and she had a decisive opinion and she was going to lay it out. And everyone's like, no, we need to talk this out first. That she just, she was a very driven woman and knew what she wanted. And like Bill Clinton said, in a time that there was a lot of division, and not as much as there is now, but in a time of a lot of division, she was confirmed 96-3.
Yeah. Smalls agrees. Smalls thinks that was excellent.
Yeah, Smalls is very happy about that. So, I don't have a lot more to say about it. Like, this was a 5 for me. Definitely worth 90 minutes.
I do have one more thing to say. Kate McKinnon as RBG was the bomb.
I loved watching Justice Ginsburg watch Kate McKinnon play her. Yes. That was funny.
I did too. That's the only other thing I wanted to say.
Yeah. And the kids were like, yeah, it's nothing like our mom. But then again, if it were, it wouldn't be funny. Like her friend said, she doesn't do small talk or girl chat, which is exactly what we're here for. So, You'll have a little bit less girl chat this summer, but we're still here for it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that just about wraps it up. You girls, watch out for those weirdos.
We are the weirdos, mister.
We are. Have a good week, everybody.
Have a good week, guys.
2 weeks.
2 weeks.
Bye.
Bye.
Don't mess with mine. I'm not the kind of girl who needs attention from a man like you. And if you